Hello guys, welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be reacting to this video called Dumb and Radical, the dangerous mindset 80% of young people have by Honest Waffles. So yeah, without further ado, let's just get into it, and I'll pause the video and talk when I feel like I want to comment over something.
Okay guys, welcome back to another video on Honest Waffles, and today I'm going to be talking about what I believe to be the most dangerous mindset, a combination of two things that is also, I've noticed, the most common amongst the younger generation, guys between the ages of say 16 to 25, but it starts to drop off guys who are more experienced in their 30s, 40s, 50s. I've seen it way less commonly guys who critically think more and have had more time to get their head wrapped around how the world works and things like that. It's a lot less common amongst them. It's the most common and most dangerous amongst guys who are 18 to 25, and that's what I'm going to be talking about today. So if you just take a second to wrap your head around this chart, there's four quadrants, obviously, as you can see, and the most dangerous mindset that people have is the radical and dumb quadrant. So somebody who has got things completely backwards, they're ignorant, they're naive, they don't know much about the world, they don't know how it operates, and what's fair and not fair, like what leads to justice, what leads to injustice. But at the same time, they've got a lot of passion and momentum, and they're very radical in their way of thinking, that they're really happy to try and bring those ideas to the forefront and use a lot of force and action in order to get those ideas across. And that's what I believe leads to it being a dangerous mindset. And if we just explore the other four quadrants, you can kind of guess what they're already going to be. So if we look at the dumb and non-radical quadrant, I would describe somebody who has this mindset as being benign. So obviously they've not got the brightest ideas to bring to the table, but at the same time, these are guys that are living in their
I could understand where he's coming from with this. Yeah. I know what he means by dumb and radical being dangerous, and dumb and non-radical being benign.
basement, sitting in a computer room all day, playing video games. Like they might be slandering on Discord to their other mates who across the world while they're playing video games about how unfair everything is and how the world is against them, the world hates them. But at the same time, because they're living in their basement, they're not actually a threat. They're safe for the most part. They're benign. They're not using those ideas in any dangerous manner. So for that reason, they fall into that quadrant. And as for the next quadrant, radical and smart, I would describe these guys as revolutionary for good. So these are guys that are geniuses. They've got a lot of good ideas to bring to the world. Unbelievable concepts. Think of people like Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, the richest people, and at the same time, they're the most radical. Like there's a reason why they're in a position that they are. No other people have that mindset, like the thinking the way that they do, that can have that level of vision and extreme thinking and the work ethic that these guys have.
Just to note, I have already seen this whole video, but I just decided to just go over it for a video because I think there's some stuff that I want to comment on. It is more the later part of the video though that I'm going to be commenting on rather than the first part, but I do understand what he means by radical and smart. Like, I can see how you can do things which are good for the world. I will admit this isn't the fully politics related video, but it gets more into it in the later part of the video.
And that's what puts them in the radical and smart category. And then finally, we have the non-radical and smart category, which I would describe as wasted talent. So there's a lot of guys in the world that you have potential to bring a lot of good to the world, make an impact, but unfortunately, because for one reason or another, they're stuck working at Tesco's or the American version Walmart. That they're under fulfilling their potential, what they could potentially bring to the world. Like I'm sure there's 8 billion people in the world. There's a lot of people in other countries who don't have the opportunities to make an impact. There's a lot of Albert Einsteins out there that never got the opportunity, never got discovered, and I would describe these people as wasted talent. But just to wrap up this introduction, like the quadrant I'm going to be focusing on today is the top left, the dumb and radical people, which, as I've said, is most common among young people, and they're the biggest threat to society. So we want to be looking out for those. And one more thing, obviously this isn't my usual content that I'm uploading, but this is what the second channel is going to be about. So it's not just stuck to the dating and relationship topics. I've got my main channel for that, where there's 80 plus videos all relating to that idea. If you want to watch there about that topic, you can. But this second channel is going to be anything that I'm passionate about, and new ideas that you're not going to see on YouTube anywhere else. So this is what the second channel is about. So we'll get into the rest of the content now. But just quickly, if you want to support me as a creator, there's a quick sound on this. But what do I mean when I talk about this dumb radicalism? Well, I'll play this clip for you, and hopefully you'll get an idea of what I'm talking about. I'm not sure if you'll be able to get sound on this, but you can see what's happening. So this person, he's got the words "Just Stop Oil" on his back. And I'm not sure if anyone who's watching in a foreign country...
I will say that when you should only peacefully protest if you want to speak out against something. You shouldn't be willing to go out and cause a scene like this, because you're not actually helping your cause. You're only disturbing another event which people are just going to think of as just you being a silly activist, and they're not actually going to take your message seriously, and they'll just be annoyed that you did this more than anything else.
If you get this, but it's been all over the news in Britain for the best part of the last 1.5 years. You've got these protesters, and this guy is at a sports tournament, and these people who class themselves under the name Just Stop Oil are radical about climate change and stopping climate change. And whether what they are saying is true or not, it's irrelevant, because they're going about it in the completely wrong way. And for anyone who's followed these people over the last 1-2 years, whatever they've been doing this, causing trouble, clogging up motorways, and ruining sports tournament, which have absolutely nothing to do with climate change. If anyone's been following those stories, you'll see that all of them have one thing in common, and that is that they are young. So, you know, they always fall into the age category of 18 to 30.
I do see where he's coming from, even though there is no age limit for being an activist. I'm not an activist, but I am a young person, so to say. I'm 20. You could take that as you will. Some people would consider that a young adult, but I don't think anyone else would really say that's anything older than that. But I wouldn't be an activist, because it's not something I'm willing to take my time out of my day for. But that's irrelevant to this video. I just wanted to say that I see where he's coming from. If you see a lot of these activists, they do tend to be on the younger side than on the older side.
Usually even younger than that. So university age students, 18 to 25 or 18 to 23, they've got plenty of time on their hands, and they fall into this category which I call dumb radicalism. So that's what we're going to be exploring in the next part of the video, and there's a reason for why I believe that is, and it's because they lack wisdom. So if
I'm going to skip this part because I feel like it's not too related to what I want to talk about in this video. But basically, in short, that section is just basically saying the younger people don't know enough about the world, and the old people are just hard to talk to, so the people in the middle are the best to talk to extract the most wisdom out of. But yeah, I'll start from this point.
Understand what I'm talking about, but what are some examples of these dumb and radical ideas, dangerous ideas, that are the most common opinions of young people? So here are some examples that I've got. So I've heard so many, this is why I actually made this video, because I've heard so many young people.
I do think that university fees should still be a thing, because it's an investment in your future, and if you scrap them, they're still being paid, but it's just not by the person actually getting the education, which I think is unfair.
People, guys around my age who are at university, come up with this idea that I just thought that I had to make a video about it, because this is what I'm talking about when I talk about dumb and radical ideas, which is just completely bonkers. These people have not thought about them in depth, and this first one is scrapping university fees. if you're young yourself, I'm sure you've had the exact same experience as me. That there's so many guys who are currently at university and they think it's a fantastic idea, whether it's for selfish reasons or because they genuinely believe it. Nonetheless, there's still so many guys that are at university that believe this is a good idea. But this is what shows that these people that believe this have not thought about it in depth for anything longer than 5 minutes. Because if you actually thought about it for anything longer than 5 minutes, you would realize that it's completely bonkers. Because if you scrap university fees, all that's going to happen is that, well, let's just get one thing straight. The main reason, or the main two reasons that guys are going to university is to go wild and go partying, and also because they want to have.
I will say that there are some people that go to university due to actually get an education, some people who go just to get drunk and to go to parties and stuff like that. So I will say that there is a section of people who go for actually being educated and use their education later on in their getting a career and stuff like that. And there's just some people who go to university just for the sake of going to university. I never went to university, but because I just never seen it as necessary. But yeah, in my opinion, you should only go to university if you actually want to get an education out of it. Otherwise, it's just unnecessary, and you'll probably have to pay for it in most countries.
Experiences with girls. They're away from home, so they want to go nuts for 3-4 years, go to all of these parties and get with a bunch of women. That's the hope, at least. Whether it materializes, that's a completely different story. But that's what guys are thinking about. The degree itself is secondary. That's especially for anyone doing a DOS course. That is, somebody picking like art history, or people that are doing that. Any men who pick a course like that and go to university, the main reasons that they're going is for the parties and the girls. And
I will say that there are some degrees which do more than others. For example, the degrees which are seen as something which is actually worth your time is like law, medicine, things along those lines where you actually need a degree to get into the sector. But if you get an arts degree, most likely that's not going to help you later in life. It's just going to just be a cost because you'll have to pay back the university fees later, and it's probably not going to do much for you. So if you're doing an arts degree, I will say that it's probably not going to do anything for you. But I don't know. In some cases, it could actually do something for you. But I feel like the majority of people who get like an art degree, for example, just never up actually using their degree once they get it.
If you implement this idea of scrapping
to get anything to help you monetarily, at least,
university fees, all that's going to happen is you're going to get people that should not go to university, that aren't intelligent enough, or we're going to pick a DOS course anyway, which means that they're not going to get a job at the end of it that actually requires their degree. And you're going to get people going to it purely for the parties, the reason that it's not intended to go. The reason why we have university fees is, one, to pay for the service, and two, is to make sure the people that are going because they believe the cost is going to be worthwhile for them long term. It's getting a return on your investment. So you're investing 50k, 100k, whatever into the course, and that's going to pay dividends off the back end once you get qualified, and that's where you generate the return on the investment. So that's the first example of how a dumb and radical idea is so mainstream amongst young people, but if you stop to think about it for just a little while, you realize that it's stupid. The next one, similar, defunding the police. Again,
I do think the police are important because you do need at least someone to uphold the laws of the society, but I can see where people who want to say defund the police are coming from, but overall the police is more of a good thing than a bad thing because they protect good people from bad people at least most of the time. Sometimes, yes, police have done something that people do not approve of, and some people think that police reform needs to happen, which I can understand. Like, I would be completely fine if police gets reformed in a good way, but defunding the police is usually the wrong thing to do.
It sounds like great on paper. Like, it would be brilliant to live in a society where you don't need police on the streets to, because everyone's just so pleasant and good. But again, it's an idea that's, if you think about it for more than 5 minutes, again, you come to the conclusion that it would be an absolutely stupid idea, because people would just go steal, they would commit crimes, they would do whatever they want, because there's no
Basically what he's saying.
one enforcing the laws of the country. You just have anarchy. It's just bonkers again. Next example, similar concept, abandoning the military or cutting it down to like 1% of the size it is now. Like, these people that believe in this idea of pacifism, that if every single country, like, this is where the ideas come from, that it's the belief that if every single country didn't have a military, then we wouldn't have a need for it, because everyone will be living in peace and harmony. But that's just, again, if you think about it for more than 5 minutes, you understand that's not how the real world works, because you need a military, because other countries that are threats to your own country's security, they need to be neutralized or at least kept at bay.
I do think that having a military is a necessary thing, because yes, the most ideal outcome is that no one attacks anyone, but unfortunately we don't live in a perfect world, so the best thing to do is just have a military where if you get attacked you can defend yourself, but you shouldn't be using your military for really anything other than self-defense.
Or at the very least, disincentivized from ever attacking your own country. It's a deterrent. That's one of the main...
Yeah, it's a deterrent, and having a military, I think, has done more harm than good for basically nearly any country, because, like, imagine if Ukraine didn't have a military, it would have been a lot worse for them when Russia invaded them. So that's a time where having a military defended themselves from an invasion.
Benefits of a military is that how many people often underestimate the number of lives saved from wars that were never fought because of the size of a country's military. People were scared to invade it because of how big and strong their military is. The next example, again, it's all the same sort of stuff, dumb and...
This is basically racism, as far as I'm concerned, because it's saying your race is more important than your intelligence when it comes to getting into college, which I think has no logic at all, really. And at most, it just gives the show that you want to look inclusive, but in really you're giving people who are qualified for the position. You're not giving someone who's qualified for the position in the university, and instead you're giving it to someone who won't be able to actually complete the course if they were to get into the university, because they didn't have high enough grades or something along those lines. They aren't intelligent enough to finish the degree. So it should be made so people who are let into university courses actually have a high chance of finishing their degree.
Radical ideas. Lowering college entry boundaries for marginalised people. It sounds great on paper once more. It feels good to lower entry boundaries for people who are from disadvantaged backgrounds, but once more, if you think about it in practice, it's going to lead to terrible results, because you're going to have people that aren't cut out, don't have the raw natural intelligence to study a certain university course, so then they go to it because they've got the lower entry boundaries, and then when they get there, they end up failing, and now they've got 20k in debt on their shoulders if they drop out on the first or second year, and no degree to back it up. So now they're going to end up working a minimum wage job with all of this debt on their shoulders, nothing to show for it. It felt good to give them the lower entry boundary, but it ended up causing more harm than good, and that's the common theme in all of these policies. Same with the next one as well. Reparations to be paid to marginalised people. And there's a pretty simple...
I also think that this is a stupid idea, because first of all, the people who were abused from these marginalised people are people who died a very long time ago. It has nothing to do with the people who are alive today. Like, for example, if your ancestors were slaves, then you shouldn't be paid money just because your ancestors were slaves, because them being slaves however many years ago doesn't really affect your life now. And I think that this is just basically giving extra money to minorities just because it sounds like a good idea, which I don't really see the logic behind.
Reason for why this is ignorant. I've seen some lawyer on TikTok that comes from one of these said disadvantaged backgrounds, and you would anticipate is not doing too well for himself, but he's earning $500,000 per year.
It just goes to show it depends on how much work you put into life in general rather than your race or whatever to become successful. So, which is a good thing. Your success should be based on how well you do your work or how much you work rather than what your race is or whatever minority you are.
And would he be entitled to reparations just because he comes from a certain background? It doesn't make any sense. Like, the idea is based upon that you're going to tax people who come from these so-called privileged backgrounds who are working pretty low-paying jobs, taxing those people and giving it to the lawyer who comes from a disadvantaged background who's earning $500,000 per year. When you put it that way, you understand that the idea doesn't make sense. But once more, people believe it, young people believe it because it feels good and it seems right. But once you think about it critically, you understand that it's a completely irrational idea. And the final one, again, if you look at the polls amongst...
Socialism is not a great idea, and I think I've looked into this a lot in my own time, and I don't see why we should implement it. I think capitalism is a much better economic system when it comes to running a society than socialism, because at the end of the day, people need to pay for stuff, and socialism is the idea where everything is free, basically, at least in pure socialist thought. So, yeah, people need to pay for stuff, and if you don't pay people for stuff, you're not going to get outcomes, really.
Different age categories for what amount of people believe that an idea like this is great, it is most...
Money is meant to motivate you to work, and not really your passion to work. Because, for example, if I could get paid £60,000 a year for a job, I would rather stay at home and earn that much money rather than having to go out and earn that much money. So I don't see the logic behind this either for socialism being a great idea.
Common amongst young people. A lot of young people believe that socialism is a brilliant idea, and again, it feels good to make people equal, to force people to be equal. But once more, if you think about it critically, that's the common theme. I know I've said it a million times in this video, but that's what it all ties back to, that it would never work in practice because you're disincentivizing people to work. If you're going to pay the doctor and the lawyer the same amount as the Morrison's worker, why would anyone become the doctor or lawyer? It just doesn't make sense. It's not worth the stress, it's not worth the risk, the investment, the time to go to university, to study, to work hard. It's not worth any of that, because if you're going to get the same outcome anyway, it's going to lead to the same thing. So that's the idea, that is tying all of these things in together. They're most propagated by young people. They've got very little thought process behind them, and the young people are also most passionate about them. Like, whenever you think about the word activist, more often than not, you're thinking somebody who's young, who believes in these sort of ideas. These are the kind of people that are protesting and most passionate about their ideas, but at the same time, they probably put the least amount of thought into any of them.
Okay then, and that's the video, so thanks for watching, and I will put a link to both this video and Honest Waffles video in the description, so I'll see you in the next video, and thanks for watching.